Reich on maybe the difference between these two injuries.
Carson's was an old injury that cropped up. Q's was not an old injury. Q's was a developmental anomaly, something that he was kind of born with, something that it's always there. You never know, and then all of a sudden, here it is. So they got there different ways, but essentially the same thing. You can't make that up, right?
Was he making up a word? What a term? What
Developmental anomaly?
So it was there, and it just kind of got shaken loose a little bit, right? Maybe his foot was stepped on or something, and that contributed to it. So assuming that they are out about the same amount of time, and I know that pain tolerance is going to come into play here, depending, because that'll change when each of the guys come back. Which is the bigger injury for the Colts, Wentz or Nelson, Mike?
It's interesting. I'm going to go with Nelson because you can make an argument that he is the best player at his position in the NFL. He is a dominant difference maker, and that's really hard to say for a guard. But when you watch him play, he is a dominant player. And look, Carson Wentz, we've talked about this quite a bit. There's so many unknowns about what he's going to be. This is a really good team. Chris Ballard, Frank Reich, they've done a great job. But let's face it, last couple of years, if we're being honest, Carson Wentz has been a replaceable part. Quentin Nelson's been a dominant player.
It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Bart, you go in the same direction, or you think it's Carson Wentz?
Absolutely not. I mean, we all understand the importance of Quentin Nelson to their team. He's the linchpin of their offensive line. He sets the tempo. I mean, he's a road grader. I mean, outside of maybe Trent Williams, he has some of the most disrespectful blocks in all of football as far as his highlight tapes. Road grading and pancaking everybody. But, it's really Carson Wentz, because Carson Wentz is the one who touches the ball every single play. So in that regard, he has your fate. He has your fate in his hands every single play. And he's a guy, if Quentin Nelson has a down year and Carson Wentz has a tremendous year, they still can go to the Super Bowl. If it's vice versa, if Carson Wentz can have an above average year, somewhere in between what he was his MVP year and what he was last year, they have no shot in really going deep into the playoffs. So it's really Carson Wentz, and if he can maybe elevate everybody around him, be that force multiplier that Tannenbaum always talks about.
That's Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise, unless, Mike, you believe in what Jacob Eason can do as a backup, as the guy for the Colts this year. And look, I agree with you.
Who?
I agree with you that he's an Iron Man. The offensive lineman is an Iron Man, and I think he has only allowed 3 sacks his entire time in Indianapolis. Doesn't he set the tone a little bit for going out there, being available? We always talk about availability being the best ability in the NFL.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that's where they deserve so much credit. They have built this team really well on both sides of the ball, and you think about going to get DeForest Buckner and all the other players they have. They just re-signed Braden Smith, a very talented right tackle. So Jacob Eason is an interesting player. He's a big, strong-arm quarterback. He had a transfer from Georgia. That always, as an evaluator, guys, and maybe this is a little unfair, I always am concerned when a quarterback has to transfer. Jacob Eason, if you're so good, win the job.
He ran away from competition.
Yeah. Now, again, little weird that Justin Fields had to leave there too. That goes back to did Kirby Smart evaluate those positions correctly, because Kirby's done such a good job at Georgia. Yeah. But that is a little weird that how does Fromm win the job and those two guys have to leave? But, Coach Parcells always used to say, when you're drafting a quarterback, especially later on, what's the developmental attribute? And you look at guys like Eason, and they're big, they're strong, can get the ball down the field. And this is a team led by T.Y. Hilton, Bart. They have a lot of weapons, and I'm a big Michael Pittman fan because of his physicality. So I think, look, if it's a couple games, could you probably hold serve with Eason? You may have a chance because it's such a good team. But to sit here and say, hey, you're going to go beat Tennessee and that offense that they have with Julio Jones, I don't think there's any chance that Jacob Eason will be able to do that over a longer period of time if this Wentz injury goes too far.
Well, and look at the schedule. The Seahawks, the Rams, at the Titans, at the Dolphins, at the Ravens, as
all
far as their first
teams.
5. Yeah, well, all 4 of the 5 made the playoffs last year. But, yeah, you're looking at the Dolphins, who made steady improvements this year as well and could be in that playoff conversation. So you don't like Brett Hundley and you don't like Jacob Eason, and then they've got Sam Ehlinger there. Eason's got to be the guy of those 3 options.
Orlovsky and I were going at it yesterday, but it's Nick Foles. The guy is making $4 million.
Yes.
He knows the offense. Let him, it's a no-brainer. Yeah. Go get him. Give a 6th-round pick to Chicago. If you're Chicago, you're going to cut him.
He's
a third stringer. And if Carson Wentz is worried about who his backup is, you got the wrong guy at quarterback.
Exactly.
You want a guy that is a battlefield commander, and if Carson Wentz is worried about his backup, you probably have the wrong guy in Carson Wentz.
Okay, but is that the narrative on Carson Wentz? Isn't that part of his whole package? Is that he kind of does worry about who's coming up behind him?
I mean, but at this point, Nick Foles knows who he is. It's not like they're making a trade for Marcus Mariota or somebody who still believes they're a starter in this league. At this point, Nick Foles is just trying to hold a clipboard and collect as many checks as Josh McCown did, right? He's just in there like, listen, let me survive, let me hang around, let me be responsible, and collect $5 to $6 million every year until the wheels fall off.
Yeah, I just, like, for me, like, you want a battlefield commander. Like, Dan Marino, Brett Favre, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. You think any of them cared who their backup was?
Yeah, Shane Falco.
From the
You know what I'm
replacements.
saying? You know what I mean? Winners always want the
Bounding
ball.
out of the tunnel.
Winners always want the ball, right? And if Carson Wentz is made out of what I believe that he's made out of, I think he comes back and he looks at, you know, a guy maybe like Nick Foles coming in as a blessing in disguise. The fact that he won't have as much pressure to try and rush back early. I mean, because you look at Nelson. Nelson's going to be under pressure to return back because he's the big, strong, big guy. He's supposed to be tough. Carson Wentz quarterbacks are judged differently. You know, everybody thinks that they're a little bit of divas, and not a lot of them are tough, even though, you know, Eli and Brady and Peyton never miss games. I think Nelson's going to be under the most pressure to be closer to that 5-week threshold than that 12-week.
Well, because he has, like I said, been an Iron Man in the league. And I think, as you guys know, obviously, a young quarterback, if it is Eason under center, his best friend, other than a run game, is a stout offensive line that can keep him off his butt. So it would be nice to get Nelson back in there. There is another name, guys, that you should keep an eye on, and that, of course, is Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers, who is coaching high school in Alabama, but said yesterday he is going to stay ready. He is not ruling out a return to the NFL.
Where's Josh McCown at, too, right now, TV?
I was just going to say, we got
Call Jay
McCown,
Cutler back.
Yeah, Orlovsky, Hasselbeck. I mean, we could keep going. And, you know, look, Bart and I were around our good friend Rex Ryan. If Phillip Rivers comes back, especially if Nelson's out, they're going to blitz in pregame. Like, he would have no chance whatsoever. Like, it's not that easy. It's not like you could just go sign and be a three-point shooter. Like, you're talking about playing quarterback in the NFL. Like, what is his conditioning like? And unless that offensive line is perfect or they go max protection on every play, like, what are we doing here?
There is definitely concern with one quarterback in Indianapolis, but what about the quarterback in Dallas? Mike will tell you why he has a ton of concern about Dak, but that's after Bart has this from O'Reilly.
When you need auto parts, O'Reilly.com is just a few clicks away. They offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online at O'ReillyAutoParts.com and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. They'll bring it out to you curbside. Or you can choose to have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Get your auto parts quickly with O'Reilly Auto